What if I told you there's a part of you that you've never fully met? A part that whispers in the quiet, hides behind laughter, and waits patiently. You don't talk about it. You barely even let yourself feel it. But it's there, watching, waiting. And one day, whether you're ready or not, it shows up. This is the story of that part of you, your sexual shadow. And it's more powerful than you ever imagined. The secret self we silence. There's a side of you don't talk about. Not to your friends, not to your partner, maybe not even to yourself. You act like it doesn't exist. You laugh it off. You moralize it. You scroll right past it. But deep down, when the lights are off, the world is quiet, and you're alone with yourself, it begins to stir. It's not the polished Pinterest perfect version of desire. It's not the cinematic kind that plays well in public. It's messy, unfiltered, raw, confusing. And it isn't about love. It isn't even about sex. It's about power, control, submission, fantasy, shame, fear. This isn't the version of yourself you post online. It's the version you keep hidden, locked in the basement of your psyche. Carl Jung knew the Swiss psychologist. Carl Jung didn't flinch in the face of this part of you. He gave it a name, the sexual shadow. He didn't say it was evil. He didn't tell us to destroy it. He said something far more terrifying. It must be integrated, because if you don't face it, it will face you. Not gently, not kindly. It will show up in ways that confuse, hurt, and haunt you. Obsession, addiction, sabotaged relationships, emotional numbness, a loop of shame you can't seem to break. Not because you're broken, but because you're disconnected. It's not just lust. The sexual shadow isn't just repressed lust. It's everything you were told was too much, too wild, too dangerous, too dirty, too needy. It's the fantasy you dismissed, the experience you buried, the attraction you judged, the vulnerability you feared. It lives in silence, but it doesn't die there. It grows. And one day it begins to speak louder than your willpower. How it shows up. Have you ever snapped at someone just because they made you feel something you didn't want to feel? Chased meaningless sex while craving deep connection? Wanted to be dominated or to dominate and hated yourself for it? Confused love with performance? Felt completely numb during sex, or worse, nothing at all? You think something's wrong with you. You call it dysfunction, but Jung would call it something else: disconnection. You're not broken, you're divided. And the part of you that's been locked away in shame is now your shadow, not just hiding trying to come home. The truth about the shadow: the sexual shadow is where your deepest wounds collide with your deepest instincts, where repression becomes distortion, where shame becomes obsession, where the part of you that was unloved becomes dangerous. Jung warned us, what you do not make conscious will come back as fate, and nothing comes back harder than sexual energy that's been locked away. Because this isn't just energy, it's identity, it's longing. It's the realest part of your humanity trying to break free. But why do we hide it? Why do we lock this part away? Because it doesn't fit the image. The good man, the pure woman, the spiritually enlightened, the emotionally evolved. But beneath the mask, the shadow burns, and the more you suppress it, the more it controls you. The quiet symptoms. You'll notice it in intrusive fantasies you didn't ask for but can't forget, in dreams that leave you shaken, in relationships that repeat patterns you don't understand, in the guilt that rises when you finally feel pleasure, in the panic that creeps in when someone sees too much of the real you. Sometimes the sexual shadow isn't loud. It's not screaming. Sometimes it's the silence that hurts the most, a numbness you've learned to call normal. We call it different names. You might call it low libido, just stress, just being more mature now. But what if it's not any of those? What if it's grief? Grief for the parts of you that were never allowed to exist, desire that never had a name, attraction that never had a safe place, power that was always too much. Knowing the shadow isn't giving in, Jung never said to obey the shadow. He said know it, see it, speak to it, invite it into dialogue, because something changes when you do. You stop fearing yourself. You stop apologizing for being human, and you start doing the real work. becoming whole. It's not about indulging every urge. This isn't a free pass to act on every impulse. It's an invitation to understand the impulse. Where is it coming from? What is it trying to say? What part of you is it trying to wake up? Because beneath the sexual shadow isn't just lust. There's something sacred, a longing for wholeness, not just physical, but emotional, energetic, spiritual. Your sexual shadow isn't proof that you're sick. It's proof that you're fragmented. And healing begins when you start gathering the pieces. This is the beginning, Jung said. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This is where it starts. Not with fantasy, not with shame, not with denial, but with one raw, honest question. What part of your desire have you buried, and what has it cost you to keep it hidden? That question is the first crack in the shell, because your sexual shadow isn't your enemy. It's the part of you that wants to come home. Why you were taught to hide it. There's a reason we bury it so deep. Not just because of religion, not just because of culture, but because of how the mind is built. Jung believed we don't grow as unified beings. We fragment, we split, we build walls to survive. And anything unsafe, unacceptable, or too much gets pushed into the dark. That's not a flaw, that's a defense, but defenses eventually become prisons. The invitation, the sexual shadow is knocking. It doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to show you what you lost when you silenced it. Your truth, your voice, your fire. So let this be the beginning, not of indulgence, but of intimacy with yourself. Because the more you understand your shadow, the less it controls you, and the more fully you become you. In the previous part, we uncovered how your hidden desires, the ones you've silenced for years, aren't signs of weakness or immorality, but clues pointing to a deeper truth. You are divided, not broken. And now we take a deeper step into understanding how this division began and how it quietly shapes everything you do. The ego's role in hiding desire. The mind is clever. It creates a system to help you survive in the world, what psychologists call the ego. Your ego doesn't care about truth. It doesn't care about wholeness. It cares about function. It protects what it believes will help you adapt, be accepted, and feel safe. And everything else, it buries deep. All the pieces that don't fit in get pushed out of the spotlight into the dark. And when it comes to your sexuality, this fragmentation doesn't just happen. It's often violent, and it begins early. The first spark of forbidden energy. Desire doesn't start with sex. It begins with something much more primal. Instinct, expression, vulnerability, control. The moment a child first feels something powerful that they can't explain, a tingle, a curiosity, and intensity, that energy rises. But if that moment is met with punishment, shame, or a wall of silence, the child learns something devastating. This part of me is not safe. This feeling makes me bad. This energy must be hidden. And so it is, but what's buried doesn't die. It mutates. What lies beneath will surface. Carl Jung warned us, whatever we bury in the unconscious will return, but it won't come back as itself. It won't speak clearly. It comes back as fear, obsession, compulsion, projection, because the unconscious doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in symbols. It speaks through attraction, revulsion, fantasy, and discomfort. The trap of projection. When you exile your own desire, it doesn't disappear. It shows up in other people. You become obsessed with those who express the very things you were taught to repress. You judge them. You crave them. You resent them. You idolize them. You shame them. But here's the truth, you're not reacting to them. You're reacting to the part of yourself that they reflect. The psyche is clever. It tries to complete itself through others. You think it's about the woman you can't stop thinking about, the man you desire and resent in equal measure, the people you secretly envy or silently shame. But it's not about them. It's about you. They are mirrors. Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. That includes especially your sexual reactions. What do they reflect back to you? If someone makes you uncomfortable, stop and ask, what are they expressing that I've buried? Is it unapologetic pleasure, freedom without guilt, power, softness, dominance, vulnerability? Whatever it is, it's in you too. It's just living in the dark. And as long as it stays buried, you'll never be free. Repression doesn't make you pure, it makes you fragmented. You walk through life half awake, polite, polished, performing. You say all the right things, you embody emotional intelligence, you radiate control. But deep beneath that perfect exterior, something is suffocating. Because the more refined you become on the outside, the more chaos builds within. Your body remembers what your mind denies. The body speaks, it aches, it tightens, it pulses in silence, it whispers at night, it triggers you when you least expect it. Desire doesn't vanish just because you trained yourself to ignore it. It becomes shadow-bound, and the deeper it hides, the more extreme it becomes. That's why so many people live double lives. One is neat, curated, professional. The other is chaotic, compulsive, confusing. That's not hypocrisy, it's a symptom of disconnection. The shadow always finds a way out. Jung described it perfectly. The shadow is a tight passage, a narrow door, but on the other side is wholeness. Because your shadow, especially your sexual shadow, is not just where your wounds live, it's where your energy lives, your aliveness, your ability to connect, to create, to feel joy without shame. Here's the truth most people don't dare speak. Most of us aren't tired because we're physically exhausted. We're tired because we're suppressing ourselves constantly. Suppression is exhausting. The effort it takes to look appropriate, feel appropriately, desire appropriately, be acceptable. It drains the soul. Jung saw this over and over in his patients. He believed that what we call neurosis is often the result of avoiding legitimate suffering. People suffer anyway, but instead of moving through it, they get stuck in loops of shame. What's the way out? Not indulgence, not control, not sterilizing yourself. The way out is awareness. To sit with the part of you that makes you squirm, to ask, where did I learn to fear this part of myself? Who told me this was wrong? What would happen if I just allowed myself to feel it, not act on it, not suppress it, just feel? That's where integration begins. Not worship, not rejection, but relationship. You don't moralize the shadow, you don't worship it either, you meet it. Because until you do, your sexual energy remains fragmented. And when it's fragmented, it leaks. It spills out in confusion, guilt, sabotage, and silence. But once you name it, understand it, bring it into the light, it transforms. It becomes power, not domination, agency, not performance, presence, not emptiness. You stop chasing things to feel whole. You stop suppressing things to feel safe. You begin to stand in your full, raw, honest, integrated self. Wholeness is not perfection. Jung reminds us wholeness is not perfection, it is the union of opposites. And nowhere is that union more essential than in how you experience your own desire. You are not wrong for wanting, you are not broken for feeling, but you are at risk if you keep dividing yourself between who you are and who you think you should be, because the shadow won't stay silent forever. And if you don't open the door, it will break through the wall. Let it speak before it screams. Let it speak now while it can still be heard gently, before it returns as fate. You think you're in control. You think you're choosing who you're attracted to, who you chase, who you reject. But beneath every decision is a blueprint, one you didn't draw. A map made of childhood, culture, silence, shame. Last time we explored how splitting from your sexual shadow doesn't just silence part of your desire, it fractures your ability to truly connect. Now we begin to see the deeper cost of that fracture, not just to your relationships, but to your entire sense of self. When repression becomes your fate, Carl Jung warned us long ago, what we fail to make conscious becomes fate. And nowhere does this warning hit harder than in your sexuality. Because here's the truth, you can build a beautiful surface life, a steady job, a loving partner, a daily routine, a socially acceptable smile. But if your sexual shadow remains buried underneath it all, that life over time will begin to feel unfamiliar. Like you're watching someone else live it. You'll wake up next to a person you don't feel. You'll go through the motions of affection without presence. You'll stay in relationships that leave you numb and push away the ones that dare to make you feel too much. You won't understand why you'll mistake emotional safety for boredom. You'll run from depth because it reminds you of past pain. You'll chase what wounds you. You'll reject what could heal you. And all the while, you'll be left wondering, what's wrong with me? But Jung understood this. He knew what happens when someone refuses to meet their own shadow. They don't just become detached, they become divided. A divided self cannot love fully. And when you are divided, your relationships become divided too. You may be physically present, but emotionally absent. You might be sexually active, but psychologically closed off. You'll smile during intimacy, but something inside you will be quietly disappearing. And your partner will feel it, even if they can't name it. They'll feel the vacancy. They'll sense the wall. They'll begin to wonder, is it me? They'll question their own worth, not realizing they're simply standing before someone who hasn't faced themselves. The quiet ways shadows kill love. The sexual shadow doesn't destroy relationships with chaos or violence. It destroys them through vacancy, through the silent erosion of connection, through the gradual absence of presence. You can't offer what you've never reclaimed. You can't deeply connect if you're split in two. You can't truly touch another soul if you're still afraid of your own. Numbness becomes normal. And perhaps the most dangerous part, we adapt to this. We normalize the numbness. We call it stability. We call it maturity. We convince ourselves that the fire we once felt was just youth, just lust, just a phase. But deep down, we know. We know we buried something real. And no performance, no matter how perfect, can replace it. This is the hidden consequence of an unreclaimed sexual shadow. You don't just lose passion, you lose presence. And when presence dies, love becomes nothing more than maintenance. The damage spreads, but it doesn't stop there. It spreads into how you move through the world, into your creativity, into your spirituality, into your sense of meaning. Jung believed that repressing sexuality leads to a splitting of the psyche, not just in the bedroom, but in the soul. Sexual energy is more than physical because sexual energy is not just about the body. It is symbolic, archetypal. It is the raw creative force of your being trying to move through you. And when that force is blocked, everything else slows down. You procrastinate, you overthink, you numb, you fantasize instead of act, you withhold instead of express. And all of it feels logical, even responsible. It feels like maturity, like discipline, but it isn't. It's resistance. And what are you resisting? Life itself. The slow disappearance of self. At first, the cost of that resistance is invisible, but eventually it becomes everything. You look in the mirror and don't recognize your own eyes. You hear your voice and it sounds like a stranger. You stop expecting anything extraordinary to happen to you. You call it burnout. You call it fatigue. But Jung would call it what it truly is. Disintegration, a soul being quietly dismantled by its own refusal to feel. The world reinforces disconnection. And as if that weren't enough, society reinforces this disconnect. We live in a world that is hypersexual on the surface, but emotionally sterile underneath. We use sexuality to sell products, get views, drive engagement, but we rarely sit with its truth. We don't ask, why do we chase it endlessly, yet feel so empty? Why can we talk about sex so loudly and still feel so much shame silently? We desire intensely but touch each other like we're made of glass. Wholeness isn't profitable. Why? Because society doesn't want you whole, it wants you confused. The more disconnected you are from your inner world, the easier you are to manipulate, to monetize, to distract. Your shadow becomes profitable, and you remain stuck, half awake, half alive. But there is a way back. Jung didn't offer despair. He offered confrontation. He believed that facing the shadow is the first step toward transformation. That reclaiming your sexual shadow is not just about healing trauma, it's about reclaiming your power. Because once you know what truly moves you, you can no longer be controlled. You stop craving hollow validation. You stop settling for lifeless intimacy. You stop shrinking your desires just to make others comfortable. You stop performing and start living. It takes courage to return, but it's not easy. You must be willing to walk through the fire, to grieve the years you betrayed yourself, to feel the desires you've never dared to name, to admit that maybe you've been living a life that isn't fully yours. That's not weakness. That's not regression. That's the first act of becoming whole. Because what the world calls darkness, Jung called potential. This is where life begins. The moment you turn toward your shadow, your real life begins. Not the life built on denial, not the life curated for approval, but the life that's been waiting underneath all along. The shadow doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be faced. Your sexual shadow doesn't need to be shamed, doesn't need to be purified, doesn't even need to be fixed. It just needs to be faced. Because the only thing more dangerous than your desire is your refusal to meet it. You've spent years keeping this part of you in the dark. Maybe you didn't mean to. Maybe you thought it would keep you safe. Maybe you were taught it was the right thing to do. But the part of you that you buried, that you denied, silenced, hid, it never left. It's still there. Not to hurt you, not to destroy you, but to be seen. Your shadow is life waiting to be claimed, because your sexual shadow is not evil. It is unintegrated life, unclaimed power, unmet truth, and it's not going anywhere. You can keep hiding, or you can turn around and finally face what's been following you. The choice is yours: wholeness or performance, presence or numbness, a life lived from the surface or a life lived from the soul. Drop a comment: I'm ready to reclaim what I buried. Subscribe to Psychic for more Jungian truths like this, and share this with someone who's still afraid of what's already inside them. Stop running. It's time to return home.